Hello and welcome to the Creators Guild podcast. I'm Chris Howell and with me,
Jared Lovelady.
and we're here to talk about all things creative. And joining us once again today for another great adventure in learning with Liz is,
Liz Verity.
yes, as always, she brings great insights and great education that hopefully we can pick up on and apply and not feel too bad about not having done with our story already.
If you do, you just join the rest of the population.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, why couldn't this have been downloaded into my brain like a couple of years ago
Yeah.
before deciding, let's write this giant, ridiculous series?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think that if people did know what it took to write a book before they started, most of them wouldn't even try.
Yeah.
But it's once you've actually written that first book and you get that joy and you find that passion for writing, then you can weather through all of these little tiny details you've got to figure out for it.
Yeah. Little tiny details like, hey, you wrote this whole book. You need to flip the whole thing upside down and turn it inside out and do it all different than what you actually did.
Yes. Yeah. The first ones are the hardest. It's the learning books, I call them.
That's okay. We still like our story.
Yes. Speaking of which.
Speaking of which, if you haven't gotten it yet, it's still available. A Flight from Shadows, Book 1. Go find it on Amazon
Yes.
and then write a review about it, unless you hate it. And then you can just tell us.
Yeah.
But if
Then
you-
send them an email and they may or may not read it.
Yes.
We'll read it. We may or may not respond to it.
There you
Yes.
go. Be best not to respond to negative ones.
But it's okay. It's okay to be critical and to be give us some feedback on
Constructive
things.
criticism.
Constructive criticism. Yes. Give us some constructive criticism and we'll cry a little bit and ignore you and do what we want anyway. No, we've gotten some good feedback from different people and we're like, all right, well, we're going to try doing, changing a little bit here, changing a little bit there from a story structure, from a writing style. Most people have told us like they really enjoy our writing.
Yes.
Of course, we're still trying to improve. We're still trying to get better at writing itself. But we're glad people like the way we write, at least.
Yes. Yeah. It's very engaging, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. So, speaking of getting better and learning things, what are we going to learn about today?
Yeah, so I thought it might be fun to talk about story stakes, like what exactly they are, and then how you can raise them, because everybody always says, raise the stakes. But I think it's kind of a misdirection as to what they mean when they say that. So,
I usually mean like, I want it medium rare. Take it off the grill.
pull it off of the grill, it's done.
Yes.
I was thinking more raise the steak from the plate to my mouth. But
Oh,
Oh, there you go.
yep, that works too.
Both good things.
Well, you got to raise the stakes twice then. You raise the stakes, let it rest for a little bit, then raise the stakes again.
There you
But
go.
cut the stakes, that's not a saying, right?
No, I mean, no, I don't think that is. There is such thing as the resolution at the end where you release tension, but I don't think you ever
That's
cut
when
stakes.
that's when you lay back in the chair, loosen your belt,
Yeah.
release the
And
tension.
we're good.
Yes.
Let's bring another steak out.
Exactly. I like this. I think we're done. We've all got it down.
There we go. Covered in less than 5 minutes.
Perfect. Okay. So let's talk about raising the stakes in the book world, in the writing world.
Yeah. So stakes in story form is actually about what your character has to lose or gain when it comes to trying to achieve their goal. So I really like September Fox. She's a fellow editor, and one of her things that she teaches is that stakes are just potential consequences. So it's not something that necessarily will happen, but it's something that your protagonist is anticipating might happen. And stakes usually are born from fear or desire. So, if you want something to happen, that's a stake, but it's born out of that desire for that to happen. Or there can be the fear of something happening and you don't want it to happen, which can also be attached to it. So if you, I don't know, talk about like getting a promotion at a job, you can have the fear that if that doesn't happen, that the next time the company decides to cut some employees loose, you're going to be one of them because they obviously don't value you. But then there's also the desire stakes is if you don't get that promotion, then let's say your wife won't think that you can provide for her well enough, and so she might leave you. So it's kind of two different sides. It's like potentially bad things that will happen based on your fear and based on the desire of what you want.
Okay. With that, like initial, or I guess looking at, I would say those kind of fall into like personal stakes of
Yes.
what's centered around individual desires, emotions, motivations for that character internally.
Mm-hmm.
Are there, well, I guess, what different ways outside of just that, what other ways do stakes play a role, or what other stakes are there that characters face? That if you're writing a story, you're like, here's all the different ways to analyze what are the stakes. What is it that's at risk here?
Yeah, so there really are two levels of stakes. There's personal, like you said, which deals specifically with your character and the internal conflict, the internal arc of that character through the story. And then there's what I call societal stakes, which is kind of the external stakes of what impact will that have on the group or someone else or even the world at large kind of thing.
So it really kind of falls in, like I was trying to think if there were more areas, but it's really comes down to fundamentally, you either have personal stakes for the main character and then stakes that are
Widespread.
will impact anything outside the main character.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's basically the two types. And they usually tie with those specific arcs. So the external plot arc usually will have those societal stakes attached, and the internal character arc will have the personal stakes attached.
Yeah.
So if you think of, let's see, a big book, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You think of them. So if they don't get the ring destroyed, externally, societally, the stakes are that the Dark Lord will take over and everyone will be worse off for it. It's basically the end of the world. Evil will take over.
Yeah. It's even if they don't destroy the ring right now, they don't get into Mount Doom and throw the ring in, then if they fail right then, the Dark Lord may not take over right then. But it's kind of that at some point, even if, we found a different way that we don't have to destroy the ring, we can hide it.
Yeah.
We get from Gandalf, from the who's the elven in the movie. She's like, instead you will have a queen.
Yeah.
Powerful and
Yeah, I think it starts with an A or something. I can't quite remember.
Can't think of her name.
Oh, God.
We're all drawing blanks. But anyway, so that we get from the different characters' perspectives of they understand how big this is.
Yes.
It's not just, we can't just take this and hide it somewhere.
Yeah, it won't go away. You just can delay it maybe, but not for long because we've already delayed it so long after hiding it already.
Yeah.
So.
And at the beginning, I like the beginning of the, in the movies, you get to the beginning and that kind of tells that story of the ring, and then there was a fight over who should get the ring, and then somebody took it, and then battles happen and all these things happened, and then years pass and things that shouldn't have been forgotten get forgotten. It's really this ominous foretelling of, it's kind of like the laws of probability of, if this thing stays here, at some point, the Dark Lord will get it again and he will win.
Yes.
It's not an if, it's just a matter of maybe it'll get found and lost again and found and lost again and found and lost again. one of these times when it gets found, annihilation or subjugation of everything.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much. But it's, yeah, that stake that the world is going to be lost. So you have to destroy it. So that's the societal stakes. And then if you go to the personal stakes, okay, so I have like a thing about this. Who do you say is the protagonist of Lord of the Rings?
The ring.
No.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the inanimate object.
I don't know. So if I look at the entire arc of the story, and like I'm trying to think fundamentally because I'm assuming there's some kind of a trick behind this. So the default statement would be like, well, that's Master Frodo who takes the ring and goes.
Yeah.
But it could be the real protagonist could be Gandalf from a certain perspective, depending on how you investigate it.
Mm-hmm.
Or the protagonist could be Samwise Gamgee,
Mm-hmm.
who's the only person who went from the beginning to the end and never faltered. Like never.
Yeah.
He is the only one at the end because Frodo puts the ring back on.
Yes.
And is like, you're like, you've been the villain the whole time. Sam had to carry you. You just walked over and fell in the water. You know,
Yeah.
like Sam's been dragging you along the whole time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Sam is.
You're kind of an antagonist.
Yeah. Say Sam is a static character. He doesn't change much. But that's who I argue is the protagonist. Just because.
Not Gollum. You can't see any way where Gollum is actually.
No.
He should have just had the ring the whole time.
He's reactive the whole time. He's constantly like reacting to what other people are going and trying to get the ring back. But it's not. It doesn't really push the story forward. I mean,
we don't like that, does we, Precious?
exactly. But yeah, Sam is the one who really pushes. Like whenever somebody gets stuck, he's the one that pushes them past. I mean, like he rescues Frodo from where he's being held captive, and he carries him, like you said, to the rest of the way. And so it's like all these things. And so I always argue that he's the protagonist.
And he carries cast iron pots and pans
Yes.
all the way to Mordor.
It's the best. But yeah, but most people do say it's about Frodo.
Yeah.
So if you're going with the one that I see Frodo as like a drug mule, like he basically the whole reason for him to be there is so that he could carry the ring and then let everybody else do what they needed to do. But if you say that he is the protagonist, his loss is basically his life. He will be enslaved to the ring because he's already been infected by it. So if it does not get destroyed, he loses his life.
Yeah.
If you think of Sam as the protagonist, though, it's more of he loses who he is. I mean, he loses Frodo, you know, his best friend, the person he's dedicated his life to. And then the Dark Lord will eventually get it. So he'll lose the Shire. He'll lose, you know, the way of his living. So it's basically like world as he knows it will come to an end. And he doesn't get the easy release that Frodo does of just having lost his mind to a ring. Like he's going to be present for it. So like I think his personal stakes are a lot higher than Frodo's because everybody says death is the big, you know, stake or whatever. And it is. I mean, it's final. That's what makes a stake good is the finality of it. As long as like you can't just go back and undo it, then it's a good stake.
Yeah.
But there's worse things than death out there that will have a greater impact and still have that finality.
Yeah, I was gonna say like we use death as the ultimate stake in most scenarios, and in my mind, I'm like, I think in a lot of ways that's kind of a cop out.
Yeah,
Like there are way, you know, Hermione Granger, we could be killed or worse, expelled. You know, I'm like,
yes,
like no, the worst that can happen is not that you die. Maybe the worst that could happen is, you know, you get trapped into this endless cycle of you're chained to a rock and a vulture comes down and eats your liver every day. And the next day you're back with a whole liver and it does it again.
happens again.
Forever.
Yes.
Way worse.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
Like Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, I know that was like post-death in hell, but if you could figure out, if somebody figured out, no, this
In
wasn't
the
going to kill
magic
you.
worlds,
You're
yeah.
alive
Yes, exactly.
forever. Be like,
Yes.
no, way worse. This is way worse.
Yeah, so that's what makes a state good is that it changes your life kind of thing,
Yeah.
one way or another. You kind of think of it as like you're floating down a river and it banks in two ways, and based on your decision, you can't come back. We say you don't have a paddle. You can't come back upstream and go back down the other way. You have to go the way you go, and then any stakes associated with that, that's just
The way it is.
yeah, you have to accept them. You can't undo them. You can't go back and be like, oh, well, I didn't really mean it. I'll take that back. And then, you know,
Yeah.
this person can come back to life. Like that's not how you could do it.
No, no takes back. No take backs. No,
No
any
take-backs.
quitsies.
Yeah.
Total side note. I'm going to take us down a little side note.
Okay.
Or side tangent here because we were talking about Lord of the Rings and the stakes, and Frodo maybe isn't the protagonist. Somebody did a fan edit of the ending of Lord of the Rings. And,
Okay.
you know, at the very end, the elves are leaving and Frodo goes and they're all like, Mr. Frodo, what are you doing? And then he's like, I can't stay, you know, and then he goes to the ship and then it shows him turn and look back and he smiles and then all the hobbits are looking at him. And then at one point, I think they cropped it from a different scene. Their faces are all like, and then it shows Frodo's pocket. He's got the smile on his face and then it shows his pocket from another scene in the movie and he pulls the ring out of his pocket and then it slides back in and then it shows him again and he's like and the music's like
Just
da,
happy.
da, 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 and he goes to get on the ship and they're all like what, and then the ship leaves and they're like no, what just happened?
He just went away with the ring.
Yeah, like how did he got destroyed? Like nope, Frodo was the bad guy the whole time. He's the Dark Lord.
Yeah. I mean,
Anyway,
it's
I was like,
believable
they did a really good job cutting the pieces together
to make it look good.
to make it, because at first it was just like alternate end, like the thing was something like alternate ending. And I'm like, is this like, I haven't even heard of this. What's this about? So then I watched it and I was like, that's so good.
It is, yeah, because I mean, he had to struggle with that the whole time, and like, what if he hadn't been able to let it go? Like, what if
Yeah.
Smeagol didn't get it? Like, you know,
Yeah.
he wasn't gonna do it, and there's no way Sam could have gotten it from him.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know how he would have actually gotten it back, but who knows?
Yeah, who
There's,
knows?
you're writing a fantasy story. You
Yeah,
could put that in any way.
Smeagol cut off the wrong finger,
Yes.
and he still had the ring.
Yeah. It was really well done. So go check it out. Alternate ending for
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings.
so it's interesting.
So anyway, story stakes.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so we talked a little bit about stakes.
Sorry, I totally derailed.
Do you want to? Well, no,
Your
I'm
train
trying
of
to.
thought there.
Yeah, no, I was trying to think. It's like we want to go over some examples of what stakes are. I think people understand like what a stake is. So, like, you know, Hunger Games. If Katniss doesn't win, she dies. But also, her family starves to death because she's not there to supply
So
food for them because she's the hunter of the family.
have you heard? I don't. We have a cat trying to join in the
yes.
conversation.
I heard that.
So with there's an anime show that a couple of my older kids like to watch, and kids they're grown up. Anyway, so I'm like, okay, I'll watch it with you, and it's called One Punch Man.
Oh yes,
Have
I've
you
heard
seen
it.
One Punch?
I have not seen it, but I have heard of it.
Okay, so I'm going to tell a little bit about One Punch Man. I'm not worried about spoilers.
Yeah,
There's not really anything to spoil because you find out right at the
yeah,
beginning.
you know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, it is. This guy wanted to be a hero just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
His ambition is he wanted to be so powerful he could defeat any monster that came alive or, that came around just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so what did he do? He trained really hard. And how did he do it? He did 100 push-ups every day and 100 sit-ups every day and 100 squats every day. And he ran 10 kilometers every day for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
and became so powerful that he can destroy any opponent with a single punch.
Yes. Yes.
And like he gets a follower at one point who wants to be as powerful as him, and he's like, he tells him, "I did this," and it's all dramatic in anime style.
Yes.
Did this every day and this every day, and then he finishes, and the guy's like, "What? What? That's not even hard. What are you even talking about?" You know. But I mean, I watch the show with my kids, and it's funny. There's a lot of like totally random stuff that happens in it.
Yeah.
And he's literally like, monsters destroy stuff, things happen.
Yep.
And he's just like, whatever. Until it's like inconvenient. He's like, "Oh man, I spilled my groceries. Now I'm just going to have to punch you." And he destroys the monster, you know, like every time he
Yes.
destroys. There's some other stuff going on. And some of it is, you know, he's learning some self-sacrifice things along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about like, what are the actual stakes for him? He doesn't really have any care about like actually saving everybody.
Yeah.
Like he literally wanted to be a hero for fun. And he got so powerful, he can just punch anybody with one punch and destroy. It doesn't matter how powerful they are. He's the ultimate. Nobody can, like nothing can happen to him. That he wins every time.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what are the stakes? And like where the last time we watched an episode, it's like the stakes for him right now are his ranking in the League of Heroes
Oh, yes.
might come down, and people might not like him very much.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Public persona. That is the stake.
Those are the stakes. And even that, he's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
So we're like, is this really even the stakes? Like, what is going on with
There's
it?
no stakes here. Sounds like it's supposed to be a comedy, so I guess they don't care too much about stakes
Yeah,
and,
well-
and getting people on the seat of their, chair kind of thing.
Well, I think they're kind of playing to the idea of, well, what would it be like if we actually had this ultimate hero or this, this powerful being who can literally defeat anybody?
We'd have Superman. We've already gone through that, and they had to give him kryptonite because he was too powerful.
Yeah. But even from Superman's motivation, in the comic books at least, is fight for truth, justice, and the American way.
Yeah.
Well, why? Because it's the way.
It's
the way.
Yeah.
Like save people. Like, but what's your motivation?
Yeah.
And that's we're kind of going on a little bit of we're going off.
Yes, but
on
the
a
thing, so
here, but
maybe not the originals, but later on they gave Superman personal stakes.
Yeah.
He had a lot to lose personally, which I think kind of helped carry him a little bit more.
yeah,
So like you can do it with just one stakes, but yeah, it's a lot more compelling if you have both widespread and a personal stake going on there.
yeah. But it's kind of like that cartoon Invincible. Have you heard of that or seen that on Amazon?
Sounds familiar, but I don't think I've...
Or on Prime Video?
Yeah, I don't think so.
It is. Jared, you should grab that cat and get it out of here. I don't know if it is the cat sound showing up. The cat is meowing so loud.
It's just crying. Please pay attention to
Times
me.
of the day, she has to be put in the kennel so she doesn't go pee on something. And if she hears people talking, she's like, "I'm here too. I'm over here," and it is so loud.
Don't
I'm like,
forget
you
about
can't.
me.
I don't think on the mic. I don't think you cannot hear the cat meowing in the background. Right? See, there it is again.
I
Can
don't
you
know.
hear it?
Maybe it can't.
I
Maybe
don't
these are good mics.
But I can hear it, and it's very loud. It's very distracting.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Well, while he's cat
yeah.
hunting.
so the cartoon Invincible.
Yes.
So in that show, the people that are coming, their motivation is take over. They come from other planets and they infiltrate, learn all the weaknesses, and they're like the ultimate powerful beings. And their goal is, we just want to dominate everything.
Oh.
We should be in control of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to go take over everybody and everything in the universe.
Okay.
And at one point, one of the guy who comes to Earth, he's talking, and he's talking about like he has a wife, he has a kid, all this stuff. And he's talking, and then he's like, he's been playing this role. And then he's like, I don't care. This lady who's my wife, this person who's I don't care about any of these things. And they're like, what? And they're all surprised. And it's like, he is like Superman powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also essentially, unless somebody kills him, he's immortal.
Okay.
So he's like, I could destroy this entire planet, like literally the planet itself, by himself. And everybody that he knows, everybody that he ever will know, they are all going to die. He's going to outlive all of them.
Yeah.
So while he can mingle with them and he, food tastes good, interactions are, it's nice to just interact, but all of that is superficial. He doesn't actually care about any of it. So when he's like, yep, infiltration time, like now it's time to actually become the bad guy. And then it's just like, kill everybody,
Wow.
And you're like, characters like that, when you write a story like that, and you're like, okay, what are the stakes for the people in this show? And especially if you have a main character who's a protagonist,
Mm-hmm.
who has that level, I'm like, how do you even create stakes for that person? Like you said, you have to come up with some kind of personal stakes for Superman.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what the lore is because I've never looked into it with Superman. Does he age in the stories? Is he going to just be there forever?
Mm-hmm.
If he is, what in the world is Superman's motivation to be like fight crime?
Yeah.
And
So if you don't have interpersonal stakes, like if you don't care about other people and you don't care about the world kind of thing, you can always do more of I guess a loss of self. So like if Superman was to stop fighting crime, he would go against who he is as a person, like what he stands for. He'd basically go against his own convictions. And so it would kind of be like a loss of self.
wasn't that Superman 2 with Christopher Reeves?
Yeah, probably. I haven't actually watched the Superman movies. I got bored of them, so I didn't watch all the new remakes.
No, this was there was Christopher Reeves in the 80s.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that one.
Where he I don't remember what happens to him, what the incident is that like kind of turns him bad, and then he becomes like a bad Superman.
Oh,
And
it's fake.
Oh.
It's artificial kryptonite.
is that what it was?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what it was. That
I'm almost positive it's artificial. They come up with kryptonite, but it's not the real thing, and it turns him evil. I think I'm pretty sure.
I can't remember what it
Huh.
is, but it's something like he becomes like a bad guy, and instead of he goes out and he just like there's an oil tanker, and he's just like I'm gonna go punch a hole in that, and he does. He
Yeah.
like straightens the Leaning Tower of Pisa. People are there taking pictures, and he goes and straightens it. Like that's one of the bad things that he does.
That's great.
But then at one point, he literally like Clark Kent and him, they have this fight scene, and I'm like, I don't know whether it's supposed to be symbolic or something supernatural because he's an alien anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, they actually separate, but
Oh,
and then fight each other
okay.
until like the Clark Kent, who's the good guy, wins over the bad Superman, and then it's like Superman's back.
Okay.
Like there's a scene.
It's Superman 3.
Is it 3? Okay, I couldn't remember if it was 2 or
Okay.
3. Like there's a scene, Superman sitting in a bar, and people are like there's stuff happening outside, and they're like, Superman, you got to go out there and help. And he's just sitting there at the bar drinking in his Superman outfit, and it's all like grungy
Yeah.
and dirty. And then he dumps peanuts onto the thing of peanuts, dumps them onto the bar,
Yeah.
and then he's like flicking them, and they're like shoot like bullets going through the wall, and like shattering bottles and busting up the wall and everything just
Wow.
with peanuts in this thing.
Yeah.
And then he runs outside. He's like, "What are you looking at? What?" And
Yeah.
And then the little boy Ricky is like, "Superman, you're just in a slump. You'll be great again, Superman."
Yeah.
So we get some of that. We get that in Superman 3, that his loss of self.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was.
Yeah. No, and that is.
I go
mean,
off on a lot of tangents. Of random
tangents are
crap.
fun. But yeah. So it's like a loss of identity. So like even if someone doesn't care about somebody else, they will care about themselves. Like even like sociopaths and psychopaths, like they have that disconnect with people, but they have an image and an expectation of themselves, and sometimes giving up that is a major deal to them. They can't let go of that.
Yeah.
So I mean, those can be stakes as well for your internal stakes, for your personal stakes. So but yeah, okay, so moving on, unless you have something else.
Nope.
Okay. I was going to talk a little bit about how to raise stakes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is within any of these scenarios, or say you have stakes, you have personal stakes, you have something that this character cares about, and maybe there's even something they have their internal stakes, personal stakes that they're facing. They don't want to lose themselves. They want to accomplish the goal. If they don't, X is going to happen. There's societal stakes out there. We have all this built in. How do you raise the stakes? What does that mean?
Yeah, so essentially it's just putting more pressure and tension on getting the goal, or even worse things are going to happen. So there's two ways you can do it. You can broaden the stakes. So say our if our protagonist doesn't succeed, then I don't know, his wife will be affected. But then partway through the story, something happens. And now it's not just his wife, it's his wife and his kids and, their spouses.
Yeah.
Are all going to go down with him, kind of thing. And so you can do it that way. And so broadening a stake just basically means it's going to have a bigger external impact. It's going to affect more people. Or you can deepen the stakes, which is focusing more on the internal stakes, the personal ones.
That's what I was going to ask is, well, what if that was going to be my next question.
Yes.
What if how do you make the internal stakes more, and is that still raising the stakes?
Yes. Yeah. So, if to deepen the stakes, you make it more of an impact to self. So, if they don't succeed, like, let's say they're in that situation with the wife and the kids and everything, he will lose the respect of his wife, kind of thing. And that will make like his sense of identity go down, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when we get later on and we're involving the entire family, it's like a loss of all of their respect, but then it's also a loss of family. Maybe he's on his own now.
Yeah.
So he has that sense of hopelessness, helplessness, alone kind of thing all around him. And then also people's perception of him has gone away. So you can do that. And then like if you want to add death, he might die or he might lose his job, or, you just add on more things that will negatively impact his personal life. And so that's how you deepen them.
Okay.
So
anything, well, I'm trying to think from the internal, the internal stakes, like with it affecting his family and stuff. It's the deeper thing of just stronger personal worse things happening to him personally.
Yeah, it's a cost of self. So like when you do something, it usually it either costs you or other people, kind of thing. Like if you just think in general, like if you don't go to work, that affects all of your employees. It costs them. They now have to do your job because you're not there that day.
Yeah.
And you do it for yourself, but then maybe later on, it's like, wait a minute, I didn't get the money for working that day, or my family didn't get the money.
Yeah.
So like, there's always a cost to self and others with your choices. And so anything that costs the self more would be the deepening of the stakes, and anything that cost others more would be the broadening of the stakes.
Okay.
So,
but in either case, it's still called raising the stakes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Raising the stakes, so whenever you ask people, how do you raise stakes? Most of them say, like, you make what they're going to lose more, and while that's true, that's not really how you do it. That's the effect of doing it, if that makes sense. So, if say we're working against an antagonist on some goal, in order for the stakes to grow, to be raised, there has to be more opposition in the way. Like the antagonist has to gain more power, or
So we have a meteor heading toward Earth, and it's a giant meteor, and we have to push the meteor off course, because the meteor is not going to impact Earth, but we've already calculated it's going to fly so close to Earth it will affect the Earth's axis and strip away part of the atmosphere, and millions of people are going to die.
okay.
And it's up to Jared to solve the problem. Jared has to figure out how to get this down, but there's somebody else who fights Jared along the way, who doesn't think his way of doing it will solve the problem. And so he's pushing back against Jared the whole time. And the stakes are like millions of people are going to die, and it's going to get, when the atmosphere is going to get stripped away, it's going to become kind of an apocalyptic planet. So then they go to do the thing, and it fails, and they find out the person pushing back against him made a change in the calculation, and now when it impacted, instead of pushing it away, it actually like spun it, and now it's not going to strip away the atmosphere, it's going to impact and destroy the Earth. And so now, from a external perspective, the stakes are higher.
Yes.
You've just like the whole planet's gonna destroy Earth.
Yeah, so you changed the story, and that changed the stakes.
Yeah.
You didn't just partway through the story say, oh, never mind, we miscalculated and the meteor is now coming straight towards us.
Yeah.
Like that, it's raising the stakes, but it doesn't connect with the story enough to really cause that tension of being like, oh my goodness. Like it's when something that you do or somebody else does impacts it, that's when it makes it a bigger deal. So yeah, something like that. So like, some examples, I guess we can look into, actually, before we do that, I just checked my notes. I have some questions on things to ask yourself in order to see where you can raise your stakes.
Okay. So this is the part where Jared and I go, oh no.
This is what we should have done. No. No, these are just some things to get you thinking. They're not an exhaustive list. But it's just ways to kind of think of like, how can you make your protagonist's life harder? And by making it harder, there's going to be more consequences, more stakes that they're going to have to overcome or get through or hope don't happen. Okay, so one of the questions is, how can you take away someone who the protagonist relies on? So that's a big thing. That's why, spoiler for any readers who don't know it, any book that you have a mentor in, the mentor usually dies.
Yeah.
Because they are a crutch for your protagonist. They know more, they can help, they're always there to have your back. So they're going to die, like Dumbledore, gone.
Yeah. Or they'll just fall down in a giant crevasse.
Yes.
Be like, fly, you fools.
That's
I
it.
want to go get all the hit points by beating the
Yes.
Balrog. I'm going to come back 25 levels up. Well, you guys all stay the same.
Yes. So taking away whoever your protagonist leans on the most will raise the stakes, because now they have to do right. There's nobody to have their back. There's no one to fall back on.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, you look at, what is it? The Magician's Apprentice, like every story that, Highlander.
Yes. Yeah.
Every story.
Teach you how to fight, and then he
where
dies.
there's like a chosen one. Almost every story with the chosen one, there is somebody leading the chosen one.
Yes.
Sword of Truth.
Yep. And they die.
Even Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, any story you think of, like if you think of YA books, most of them are the protagonist has to learn how to do something, and there's no adults around to help.
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay, we're taking away whoever you lean on so that you have to do it, and you have to own whatever it is you do.
Yeah.
So that's one way to definitely raise the stakes because there's more pressure on your protagonist. Next question. What advantage can you take away from your protagonist?
Arms.
Arms. Yes, you can definitely take away some body parts. But even resources or authority, if you have someone who is a top-notch researcher and, that's how they have access to all this information and do these great things, and then they falsely get accused of something, kicked out of the company, they don't have access to it anymore. Now they have to come up with their own resources in order to do what they need to do. So that puts on more pressure. That raises the stakes of like, oh, if I don't do this, then I'm the one person that can, and I can't help anybody.
Yeah.
They won't survive.
Cancel their cell phone plan.
Yeah.
Story over.
Yeah, no more phone. You cannot ask Google.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Another one is, how can you make your protagonist build up to finally facing her biggest fear? So this one,
Is that one like face biggest fear, biggest like are there other things you could put in place instead of fear just to start?
yeah, biggest opposition really. Fear is kind of that internal thing of like, okay, we're trying to overcome it, but it could be like the biggest opponent as well. But it's basically kind of trying to do that snowball effect of like they make this one little, like they have this one little flaw in themselves. Say they always underestimate people or something like that.
Yeah.
Because they're prideful and they make one tiny little mistake at the beginning and, there's repercussions. It's not that big of a deal, whatever. And then they make another one and okay, it's a little bit bigger of a deal. And then it starts kind of hitting them as they go farther and farther. It becomes bigger and bigger until they're in such a big mess because of this one thing that they have to face the fact that I am prideful and I shouldn't underestimate other people. Other people can do good things too.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to really like push them into a corner and make them face it.
The best example of that I could think of, that I'm thinking of right now, like while you're talking through, I'm like, it all fits.
Yeah.
Everything fits. And that is, people of Santapoco. Everyone must face an El Guapo. Sometimes your El Guapo is you can't speak, or sometimes you're shy, or sometimes
Yeah.
this list of things. But for us, our El Guapo is the actual real El Guapo, who also happens to be a maniac who wants to kill us. Like, what can you do really well? We can sew.
And so, yes.
But I'm like, that what you just described, I mean, it's a comedic way to do it, but Three Amigos, that scene is exactly what you just described.
Yes.
They tried these different things. They ran away. They did escape, but they're still being chased, being pursued. They got to get back. Their whole purpose of coming down there, originally was they thought they were making a movie with, the infamous El Guapo, who was not just, he's so famous, he's infamous. But then it's like they literally get back to Santapoco and they're like, El Guapo and his men are coming and they're going to kill everybody. The only thing we can do is finally all of us face him together.
Yeah.
So we all have to, all have to overcome that fear of the actual real El Guapo.
Yes. But yeah, exactly.
So your question was, how can you say that again, just so?
How can you make your protagonist build up to finally facing the biggest fear?
Okay. And the part of that question I think is important. The how can they build up to it?
Yes, that's
Throughout
all
the
about
story.
the raising the stakes. Yeah, you don't want to immediately hit them with bam, biggest fear right in your face. Like you want to build that and grow that tension.
Yeah. Which again, Three Amigos.
Yes.
They go through the process. They build, first they're there, and then they think it's fake, and then they find out it's real, and then they're going to run away, and then they come back, and there's devastation, and then they're like going to go face him, but only sort of. They're trying to sneak in, and they finally build up to, no, we have to face him, and not just us, but the whole people of Santapoco.
Yes.
We all have to face the real El Guapo.
Stand together.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so next question is, how can you cut the time the protagonist has to complete the goal? So, you know, that's always the ticking clock thing. That always raises the stakes, is that when you have to shorten what you have, you're like, oh, okay, like I have to solve this problem. Okay, I can do that. That's fine. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, you have to solve it in 3 days.
Yeah.
So that's
You cut
always,
the red wire, but it's the wrong red wire. And instead of it being at 45 minutes, now it's at 3 minutes.
yes,
You
exactly.
just literally cut the time.
Yes, exactly. That's a perfect example. But yeah, that's one that a lot of people uses, is they try to put a ticking clock in there in some way, shape, or form. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a literal clock, but they try to tell you that they have only so much time, and then their chance of winning is gone. So,
Yeah.
so that's a big way of doing it. Another one is, what belief does your protagonist hold dear that you can shake or undermine? And that's what we were talking about earlier about the loss of identity. If
Yeah.
you have a specific thing that is your cornerstone, your faith is your cornerstone or whatever, and that's shaken, that will really add a lot of tension, and it adds the stake of losing your identity, your convictions,
Yeah.
to the stakes that already exist.
So that's one, just to kind of go down that rabbit hole just a little bit with, so read that one more time, just because I want to get how you worded it right.
Absolutely. So, what belief does the protagonist hold dear that you can shake or undermine?
Okay. So shaking and undermining of the belief that the protagonist holds dear, that's one that I see it a lot more, I think, in movies or TV shows than in books. At least what I'm about to describe. And it is, there's frequently in stories where or portrayals of events that shake people's beliefs, but the belief that they have, I'm like, I don't think that's strong enough to provide the motivation to do what it is you're doing.
Like, what kind of examples? Are
I'm trying to think of a specific. I know, like, there's so many like random things that people have. It might be like someone told them a lie about something. Maybe a good example would be like in a lot of romance shows where they find out and they're like, oh my gosh, you were lying. Your name's really Bill. It's,
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not like you discovered some secret of this person. It frequently has to do with something like that.
Yes.
Of, you were lying. You just shook the foundation of everything that we had built on. All of the trust we had is gone. And I'm like, I don't think what they lied about is big enough for you to feel that way.
Yeah.
Like you're planning on spending the rest of your lives to get, going on the love story as the
Yes.
example. You were planning on spending the rest of your lives together. And you're like, I couldn't spend my life with somebody who lied to me in that way. You dated John in high school and you told me you didn't.
Yes.
Like, and
Yeah.
be like, hey, you lied about this. Yeah. Well, why don't you explain to me why you felt it was important to lie about that?
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah. I don't really like that. So I'm going to be angry at you for a day or two. You
Yes.
owe me chocolates and, a spa day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have, like, well, if I can't trust you on this, how am I going to trust you with like raising children? And I'm like, wait a minute. Do you realize how trivial the lie is that they told?
Yes, and this is where setting up that belief and that backstory can really make a difference, because obviously in those shows it's just kind of like for drama's sake.
Yeah.
They throw it in there, but if you had established from get-go one that this woman had lived in a house where her dad lied about everything, and it completely ruined their entire family, and she has major trust issues, and it's a really big deal, then having that moment is a lot more impactful, of being like, I don't trust easily, and I was trying really hard to trust you, and you can't even trust me with the small things. How am I going to think about you trusting me with the big things? So like, you can make that work, but you have to set it up right.
Yeah.
You can't just like grab something like, you know, you said
Yeah.
you're just having a relationship and I lied about who I dated and then
Well, so
the world ended.
one that I'm thinking of like right now in that love story vein, the How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days
Ah, okay.
with Matthew McConaughey and
Yes.
yeah, I can't think of her name.
I don't know, don't ask me.
Anyway, so they both have like bets going on where
Yes.
he's going to get this sales position in this diamond company and she's going to get this promotion at her magazine company. She's writing an article, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And his thing is he's going to get her to fall in love with him in 10 days.
Yes.
And so direct conflict.
Both betting opposite ways without
Yeah.
knowing that each other is betting.
Exactly. And then you get to the end and like, of course, it all comes out and everything. And the reality is they both actually did fall in love with each other.
Yes.
She really fell in love with him. He really fell in love with her. You know, and then they're both like, you know, it's the Spider-Man meme where they're like, you know, pointing at each other.
You did it. Yes.
And I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's my personality, but, you know, if that actually happened and then I'd be like, wait, you were doing this the whole time? You were right. And then I'd be like,
Me too.
yeah, I'd be like, well, I was doing this.
Yeah.
Like, but isn't it like, it's crazy. I actually fell in love
Yeah.
through
Well,
this whole thing.
and
Like,
if-
wait, you were betting to see if you could fall in love with me or get me to fall in love with you? Yeah. I'm really glad it worked. This is like the best bet I've ever made in my life. And you fell in love with me and I get this huge diamond account that's going to make me millions of dollars. Isn't it
Yeah.
great? You fell in love with a millionaire and the millionaire fell in love with you. We
Happy
both
ending.
win.
yeah, and I think this is where like movies don't have the edge that books do because like it's very much portrayed like that. Like they're mad because each other lied to each other. But I think if I was writing it as a book, I don't know if it was actually meant this way. But if I was writing it as a book, when they get mad at each other, it has nothing to do with each other.
Yeah.
Like they're mad at themselves first off for, you know, being a hypocrite and, you know, being upset with another person for doing exactly what they did. But then also I think being duped because neither one of them think that they can be duped. Like nobody can pull one over on me. And then they both just got pulled over on, you know, like something happened. So, I think it was more as they have to get over themselves in order to rectify it in the end. It's not like they walk up to each other and forgive each other for lying. It's they forgive themselves and then they get back together kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like, again, it's being able to portray correctly what it is the stakes are and what it is actually came out at that climax. But you're right, in the movie, it very much does seem very superficial in the fact that it's just like, because you lied, I don't love you anymore.
Yeah. And, you know, and maybe like some shows do a good job of saying, well, not saying, well, because you lied, I don't love you anymore. It's because you lied, I can't be with you.
Yeah.
And depending on how extreme the lie is and how foundational whatever the lie was told, you know, is fundamental to their relationship, I could see no, this can't happen kind of thing. But a lot of it, and it does happen in some stories. It does happen in, you know, not just love stories, although I kind of tend to think like,
Yeah, I think they
Like-
often fall for those.
yeah. But even most of it comes down to when those things happen and I'm like, you guys you're kind of pathetic. Like if that's what it takes, if that's all it takes to destroy that, you know, that what you asked about this,
Yeah, that
Fundam-
belief.
I'm shaken to the core. And I'm like, that's not a very strong core. You know,
Yes.
you should have done more sit-ups.
Yeah.
A lot.
A lot
You
more.
know?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we have in books that we can do is we can take the time to set that up more versus movies do not. But some authors don't take the time to set them up, and then in the end it does feel cheap because of that.
Yeah. I mean, it was still an entertaining movie to watch, you know, and a lot of them are like, I get, you know, 95 minutes of just sitting here and
Chilling out.
chilling, laughing at something. I'm not this isn't some existential
Yeah, you don't have to
thing
think
that
too
I have
hard
to
to watch
consider. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just I wanted to go kind of down that thought path there of when you are looking at how do you shake your character's core beliefs.
it.
I like it when it's okay for them to have shaky moments with more superficial beliefs, but when it comes to huge decisions, huge impacting things, if your character is shaken by these core beliefs that are like garbage beliefs, then I'm like, well, I don't like your character anymore.
Yes.
Like, you just made your character to where I'm like, well, they're kind of an idiot. If that's all it takes for them to actually do this thing, I don't like them at all.
Yeah, you have to show over time in the little things. Like,
Yeah.
this is what they believe, this is how they act because of what they believe. And you have to reinstill that over and over again so that when it happens, it's this big moment. I think about, and I bring up Brandon Sanderson a lot. I don't read him a lot, but like his books are so big. There's examples of everything in there.
Yeah.
But his character, is it Rock, the chef in Bridgeport?
Yeah.
So he won't pick up arms. That's not his position in the family. He will not do it. And Sanderson shows that over and over again of when they're in trouble, when they could have used his help. He says no, no, no over and over again. And then, spoiler alert, if anybody cares, you get to the point in the story where I'm pretty sure it's Kaladin, isn't it, that is about to die. Somebody is about to die, and it's immediate. It's going to happen. And all of a sudden, this arrow goes right through the person that's going to do it. And you look back and you see Rock with a bow.
Yeah.
And you're like, he just picked up a weapon.
Yeah.
And like, it's this huge thing. And so like us as readers, we're all excited. We're like, yes, he did this. But then Sanderson doesn't let that happen. Like, he doesn't roll into our expectations of, yes, he's finally on, board with this.
Yeah.
He goes, no, he just broke his core conviction. And now he is broken and he has to go home and he has to deal with this.
Yeah. He has to go back to the islands where he's from and fit and like actually go. And it's something that is, punishable within his, like, it'd be like he broke sacred vows.
Yeah.
And he's going back to
face them,
to face the punishment of breaking sacred vows that were never to be broken.
Yeah. And so that that makes it a huge stake for him, is like, I can lose this person that I care about dearly, or I can, betray my culture and have to face that punishment myself and have like personal stakes thrown at me. And he chooses to save the person and take the repercussions, the consequences on himself.
Yeah.
So that's just a great example of, taking that core belief and making it into a stake that really strikes the readers.
Yeah. That just made me think of, I can't remember who it was. He was talking about giving your word of honor, like giving your word that you'll do something, and making commitments or covenants in and he said, if you trap me in prison with walls that are miles high and stone that goes miles into the earth, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to dig my way out or chisel my way through in order to escape the confines of that prison. But if you draw a circle on the ground and put me in it and make me give my word that I'll never leave that circle, I will die inside. I'll never cross that line. Death will take me first.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when you're writing like Rock, that character, that's what just happened to him is, okay, you're inside this circle. Well, what if you're inside the circle and then your family is lined up and they're going to get butchered in front of you? And the only way to stop it is you gave your word never to cross this line.
Yeah.
But all you have to do is cross the line and you can save them.
Yeah.
I'm like, there has to be some kind of cause besides just, well, I said I wouldn't.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, maybe that's enough maybe that's enough for some people.
It is, yeah. It'll say a lot about the character if it is.
Yeah. Or, but it'll be, if there is no reason, why is the circle on, I guess it depends on, we're going to do a test to see how good your word is. Well, what's the outcome of the test kind of thing?
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things, again, going back to like breaking your word, another failure in stories is when we have the circle, we're putting a circle on the ground and you have to give your word never to leave the circle. And then the character will say, yes, I give my word, without ever saying, well, what is this circle? why am I here? Why am I giving my word to be in this circle?
Yeah.
What are the consequences if I don't give my word? What's going to happen? You know, like all these layers of things that didn't happen. And then when the test comes of, all right, here's all the people you care about, and they're going to be killed in a terrible way. It's not going to be quick, and it's going to be one at a time. They're all going to see it, and each one of them is going to experience it in order to try to convince you. Like, there's got to be some really good reason
Yeah, you have to set
for
that
you
up.
to have given your word in the first place.
Yes.
And that's what it comes down to with Rock is he has a reason to not step out of that circle. And it's this core conviction that goes all the way back to the people that he's from and their beliefs and their distant past and all of this stuff. That's this huge mountain of things that build up to him. This is my core belief.
Yeah.
And then after instance after instance after instance, he makes the decision, I'm stepping over the line. I'm stepping outside the circle, even though it shatters everything that I've built up to.
Yeah.
So if you're going to shake your character's foundations, I just wanted to dive into that because there are so many times in stories where I'm like, well, everything, like, you don't have enough there to, like, I'm not deeply invested in that foundational
Yeah, you
thing that
can't
you
just
shook
state.
because I was kind of dumb.
Yeah, so you can't
You
just state this is the person's belief and then just
Yeah.
expect the reader to be like, "Oh, this is their belief." Like
Yeah.
you have to give us the reason why. You have to show us as the character follows that belief and bad things happen and result, but still sticks with that belief. Like we've got to
Yeah.
see that really clinging to it and as you said a reasoning as to why. Like we don't want to just be like, "Oh yeah, he's super against killing people." And like that's just he just believes that. Like that's just what he believes. Like we got to see where it comes from and the root of it. And then yeah, that will make it even a bigger impact at the end. And maybe like Rock, he'll go against the belief for another reason, or maybe he'll hold firm, you know, like you think of Captain America, and you know he always gets back up and continues to fight for his country, and that's his belief, and he never wavers from that, even when there's good reason to not
Yeah.
follow it. He still follows it. So you can do it one way or the other, but you really want to show that conviction and not just state this is his belief.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. One more question.
Okay.
Oh no, wait, sorry, two more questions.
Okay.
So, how can you threaten the person the protagonist loves most? So this is sort of like the mentor character, like we're taking him away, but this is more of like we're going to. You don't have to kill them, but you know it can threaten their lifestyle. It can actually threaten their life. It can maybe harm them. Maybe it'll just ruin their image. You know,
Yeah.
if
I
you're
was gonna say there's a lot of stuff like that where it's ruined, where their image, who they are, their trustworthy, like all this stuff. Like there's a lot of instances of things like that happening.
yeah, and people will protect that. I mean, like
Yeah.
if your protagonist is you know, a criminal or whatever, but his kids don't know, and he will go, you know, to the moon and back to make sure his kids never know what kind of life he leads. That is a huge stake that you
Yeah.
can play with and be like, "Oh, the kid's about to walk in on this. What are you going to do to stop it?" And
Yeah.
you've got to yeah,
Well,
so
even did you ever watch Breaking Bad?
no.
Have you watched Breaking
No,
Bad, Jared?
have not.
Okay. Well, there's spoilers. If you haven't watched
It's
Breaking
okay.
Bad,
Go
it's
for it.
been out for a long time also. So you get in Breaking Bad, I don't know if you know the premise,
Yeah.
where he like starts selling drugs to pay for his cancer
Mm-hmm.
treatments and stuff. But then he ends up like getting better, but now he's like in this lifestyle kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he's still just the normal guy that lives on the street and everything, and he's got this whole life behind the scenes, and eventually his wife finds out, and then like eventually it all comes to the surface, and he's been like the bad guy the whole time that the police have been after, including his brother-in-law,
Oh.
like all this stuff. And he's now on the run from the cops, and now it's his wife and his kids and everything. The police are there. He forced her into, like, he had all the money, and then he's like, you have to help me launder this money, because she had worked as an accountant
Oh.
at a place.
Okay.
And then, now she's like, oh crap. And so she gets sucked into this lifestyle. Well, then the police are in the house and everything. He calls and she answers the phone. And on the phone, like totally out of character for him, speaking to his wife. But he knows the police are listening right now.
Mm.
And he's like, listen to me, you blankety blank. Where you turned me in. I told you. And he like, everything he said is like, he doesn't have it, but it's almost like a written out speech.
Yeah.
And he asks her questions and then is like, no, I told you. And it's everything to be like, she is
not
exonerated.
Guilty. Yeah.
Nothing she did was by choice. All of it was under like threat of harming her, harming the children. She was his prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though she's like almost hates him at this point because of what he's gone through, she's just like, you can see the actress does a good job in her face.
Yeah.
Where she's like, at least there's this one piece of redemption that he's trying in this phone call to save us.
Yeah.
From everything he put us through.
Yeah. And that's cool.
Yeah.
That definitely shows how, I mean, the stakes was his wife's opinion of him and that he lost that.
Yeah.
But then he regains it in the end. And that's a cool play on that.
And that like the stakes are literally his wife will go to prison. His son, who was a teenager, but now is old enough to be convicted as an adult, might also go to prison. And their now like 2-year-old baby will get taken away and go to foster care or adoption or something, so it's like the people he started initially to do all of this for like 9 seasons before the whole reason it happened, he's already losing all of them.
Yeah.
But the one redeeming thing he can do is how can, to your question, they're the people he loved the most, they're about to lose everything. Yeah. And so he's got to step in the one last time he can, step into the breach and try to save what he can for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good example.
It's a well thought out show.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, I know it was popular, but yeah, I just never got into it. So, okay. And then last question is, what extra advantage can you give your antagonist? So this is another thing that a lot of people don't think about. They usually think of how can I make life worse for the protagonist, but it's actually also about how can you make it better for the antagonist? How can you give them more power, more reach, more influence to be able to carry out their plan, so it makes it harder for the protagonist to then beat them?
They're resistant to the first punch from anybody, regardless of how powerful.
One Punch Man is down.
Yes.
He has to use 2.
Yeah. It has to be 2 punches.
Yes.
They have like an infinite resistance to the first punch from anybody.
That would work. But yeah, so that's another thing is when you're thinking about raising stakes, just don't just think about your protagonist, think about how you can help your antagonist, because it is all about the upward climb for your protagonist to beat somebody better or more well-connected or whatever than your protagonist. So you want to be thinking about that and how you can make their life go better. And you don't want to make it all better at the first thing at the beginning. You want to slowly give them more advantages as they go. And it can be due to their hard work. You don't have to just give it to them and be like, oh, this just happened to work out and it makes their life easier. Like, it can be due to their actions, but they need to gain advantage as well as they go.
Yeah. Yeah, I like stories that have good antagonists that have the advantages that come their way are not just like, oh, the universe gave this to them. Mm-hmm. They needed to be better. And so the same thing I don't like, oh, the protagonist, well, they just needed this thing to show up, and it did.
And it did, yeah.
Like, no. But there is something to an antagonist who is everything they're doing is like they're building and growing and developing all the way along the way too.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah, one good example is, I don't know if you've read it, the Shadow and Bone series by Lee Bardugo.
Yeah.
So you have the Darkling in there, and he, is this big main bad guy, and he already has all this influence. He has all these people who trust him. He has like the biggest power in the world or whatever. But she still, over the series, gives him more power. You know, he has control over Alina when he puts the SAG collar on her.
Yeah.
Of course, she breaks from that, but in doing so, she accidentally gives him more power so that he can now create these beasts himself.
Yeah.
And so it's just this, like, you would have thought he had everything, and yet she still found a way to make him keep climbing that ladder and keep gaining power. And even if it's not like actual magical power, he eventually gets control of the country. You know, he starts to be the ruler kind of thing. So like then now he has the influence of that. So you always want to think about how can you let them get towards their plan.
Yeah. One thing with that, I'll use an an example of if you've ever watched the 90s TV show, The Power Rangers.
Yeah. Yes. Long time ago. I don't remember much about it, but yes.
So when we talk about giving antagonists power, so I was thinking, like what you were saying, I was thinking about how this applies to, or a way to kind of describe that is escalation of force. Is,
Yes.
well, I'm going to bring fists. Oh, yeah, well, I can kick really hard. Oh, yeah, well, I have brass knuckles. Well, I have a knife. Well, I got a gun. Well, I have a bazooka. Well, I got a tank. You know,
Yeah,
well, I have
I got a
jets.
bomb.
Yeah, I got a nuclear bomb. You know, just more and more and more and more and more.
Yes.
If you do it in a good way, it tells the story. If you do it like Power Rangers, the bad guy's there and the Power Rangers show up, and then the bad guy's like, ultra super bad guy, level up 1. And then the Power Rangers are like, oh no, we're going to lose. We better power up 2. Super Power Ranger level 1. Fight, 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 and like destroy half the city.
Yeah.
Oh no, the bad guy's going to lose. Ultra super power level 50. And then, oh yeah, Power Rangers unite into Super Power Ranger fit. I'm like,
Yeah.
if you already have it all there, and you're like, Power Rangers, we got to go defeat that guy. All right,
like,
just start out
level
level 50,
50.
smash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like that is great for 5-year-olds.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah,
oh
you-
yeah, build up. Oh man, did you see that? But for storytelling and sucking people in,
They got to work for
that's
it.
not how you raise the
Yeah.
stakes.
No, you don't just add the stakes. You got to work for it. So, but yeah. So anyway, so those are some questions that I usually ask when I'm trying to figure out how to raise stakes. But yeah, that's kind of stakes and raising them all in one.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's kind of clear. I know we jumped around a lot, but hopefully
I
some
am
good examples.
great at chasing squirrels.
Great.
Yes.
You're the master.
The master of it.
Hey, at least I try to be entertaining in doing it.
That's true.
I don't know. I feel entertained.
I'm entertained, so you know.
So yeah, there's a lot there. What are your initial stakes? What are the different ways in which stakes can exist for your character?
Yeah, personal and societal.
And then ways in which the questions you can ask of how do you create stakes, and then how do you raise those stakes
Yeah.
and make it even more as the story progresses. And though you can, if you get those pieces down, from at least from a stakes perspective, you can have like something that is engaging that people want to know. But was part of the stakes is to find out, well, what's going to happen? I want to know
Yes.
what is going to happen. How is this going to be overcome? If your stakes aren't high enough, nobody cares.
Yeah. I generally work backwards. So I'll start with like, what are the stakes at the end of the book? And then what's the stake that pulls the protagonist into the story? And then I kind of like bridge it from there and be like, okay, so we started on this level and I want to get to this level. And, how can I kind of maneuver the field to get there?
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot of things you can do, and every story, from a love story to, Star Wars,
Yeah.
to Lord of the Rings, to Song of Ice and Fire, whatever. There are different stakes for different characters. If the story doesn't have stakes,
It lacks meaning.
lacks meaning.
Yeah.
Just a real quick, I had a class in college where the teacher was like, okay, I'm gonna give you 2 different examples. One is, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna watch this little show. there's a field and butterflies flying across the field. And then a little Bambi deer walks out and he sniffs the flowers and then he follows the butterflies and we watch him prance around in the field and then he walks off the field and then the credits roll. And you're like, that was it. We told the story of the little deer walking across the field.
Yeah.
He's like, now the second version is there's a field and the butterflies are flying across the field and the little deer prances out into the field and he sniffs the flowers and he follows the butterflies. And then all of a sudden, a dinosaur foot is like, bam! And smashes the little deer. Like, which story is more interesting?
Yeah, well, one has conflict, one doesn't. So,
Yeah. It's like, there's risk. There's some kind of conflict that, like, if you want to know what happens next,
yeah.
the first story, nobody cares. The second story is like, is he dead? Did he survive? Are there other deer? What is this dinosaur?
Where'd the dinosaur come from?
Yeah. Like getting good steaks, realistic, were there deer around when there were dinosaurs? Yeah.
Probably not. Maybe.
So why is the dinosaur there? So many questions.
Yes.
From that perspective or from that little thing, what just happened? Yeah. So many things that could potentially lead somebody to investigate further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the conflict is always key to getting someone's attention. Because I don't remember who said it. Someone said it, or maybe I read it somewhere. But they said that a story that starts with the cat laid on its mat versus a story that starts with the cat laid on the dog's mat. Yeah. It's okay. Confrontation right there, like is the dog going to be upset that the cat's there? Is there going to be a fight? It's not super interesting, but there is a chance of conflict there versus the first one. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's totally different. It changes the context completely to where you want to know what's going to happen next.
Yep.
So, we've got to look at ours. How do we raise the stakes? Do we have good enough stakes?
I've been sitting here thinking about ours, and I think we do a fairly decent job. We touch a lot of those points, but the problem is it's all in the future. It's spoilers.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to make sure you have present time stakes as well as future ones. But it is that big one overhanging that carries the story, and you guys got that one. So
yeah. Once again, more work that we have to do. Thanks, Liz. You always come around and give us more work.
It's my job. Make other people's life harder.
Well, if people want to come and find out how to make their lives harder,
yes,
how can they do that?
Yeah, just come visit lizverity.com and I will give you all the work you could ever want. I have lots of posts on there about writing advice, as well as a couple short stories, just that I've done for fun, mostly in the early days that I started writing. And then you can sign up for my newsletter where you'll get writing advice from me in your inbox, so you don't have to come to the website all the time. Or you can sign up for my quarterly newsletter where I talk about my journey.
Very good. And I highly recommend it. She does send out her newsletter with a lot of stuff just like this.
Yes.
Even there'll be quizzes, worksheets, like things that you'll actually get to be like that you can go through on your own and figure out how to improve your writing and be a better storyteller.
Yeah, I like practical exercises. So there are quite a few posts that have those at the end for you to think about.
Yeah. So go check that out. Also, don't forget, go buy our book. So more stuff to come, more episodes coming up your way. We'll have Liz back on again and have some more learning from Liz in the future. And until next time, go in good spirits. Thanks for listening to the Creators Guild podcast. Don't forget to get your copy of A Flight from Shadows, available on Amazon. While you're there, please rate it and give it a review. If you like the Creators Guild, please like and subscribe, and make sure to share it with your friends. Until next time, go in good spirits.